Hello, everybody. Welcome to Raising Vibrations. You with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a astrology update. This is for the 30th of March, 2020. And as the title suggests, the unveiling. So for many of you that follow astrology or watch other channels, by now you must know that Jupiter and Pluto are going to be making a conjunction with each other. And at the same time, of course, Saturn has entered Aquarius. So we are in some really, really interesting times. And I think that's probably an understatement. If there was any an opportunity to say that, it is truly the unveiling. So today's conversation hopefully is my attempt to share with something that I feel could be in some way supportive to you, help you in some way begin to process the context of what the collective is dealing with at the moment, and through that, what we are individually dealing with at the moment as well. So, just before I went to sleep last night, myself and Jen, as we do, we just discuss a few things about the nature of the day and current reality. And I think the comment that we made together was the movie just got weird, and it's definitely feeling that way at the moment, for all of us in different parts of the world. We are definitely in some really interesting times. So before I jump into talking about the astrology and all the things that I think are valuable and could be important, I just want to check in with you and just ask you how you're doing. How are you dealing with the current energy at the moment? And if you feel comfortable and open enough to want to share your experience, please write in the comments below. I'd like to develop a sense of connection, not only with what you're doing and busy processing, but also how other people could also see that as well. So I hope that you are managing okay during this time. I suspect that wherever you are in the world that's listening to this video right now, whatever you're dealing with, I really wish you all of the strength to find the courage and the knowing and the grace to be able to trust and know that this sort of intense period or phase is something that you're going to withstand and you're going to be able to move through. Okay. All right. So I'm sure by now we and you have processed through a multitude of different fears. You must have, been processing states of uncertainty, states of confusion, needing clarity, wanting your need for safety to be met, observing mental overload as well, and anything that could possibly be, very overwhelming during this period of time. I'm sure that you are busy experiencing that right now, to the certain degree. Whatever situation, whatever circumstance you're moving through right now that's personal to you, just know that that's very real for you, and nobody should get the opportunity to disregard that, regardless of what it feels, sounds, and looks like to yourself or to the other person. Okay, this is a really, really profound time for everybody to know and acknowledge their own sensations that are moving through their body, how you're sensing the nature of reality at this point in time. This is a period where our sense of self, our sense of orientation, the ability to make sense of something is really, really disturbed at the moment. And, this is also a time to recognize that so many people have been trying to heal themselves through, uh, complex post-traumatic stress, any forms of delayed stress in that sense. And this is a time where these types of fears can show up, or these types of fears can trigger complex post-traumatic stress. It can trigger deep, unresolved complexes, emotions, fears, scarcity dynamics. They're all here and real. And I know that there's a really strong drive in the world to practice encouraging people to see their role in society, and the responsibility in society to, especially in countries that have got lockdown at the moment, to, make sure that other people are kind of acknowledging that as well, the importance of that right now. And so that's a really big thing. But I would also um, share my own personal suggestion that this is also a period of time where your or our um, ability to ground ourselves and find a place in ourselves to know that whoever it is that we're interacting with is dealing with something similar, and that we don't quite know what that might be. So if you're interacting with somebody on the internet at the moment that might be, shouting, you know, in terms of like comments and stuff, and people are getting angry, I encourage you to hold a state of mind that recognizes that whatever it is that that person's been experiencing up until that point may contribute to their creative expression in that point, and to give yourself that space to do it as well, so that we are not amplifying and yeah, we're not amplifying the really, 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 really clear and apparent stress that we're collectively experiencing at this point in time. Okay. We don't know what another person's dealing with. We don't know what they might have happened, what information or news that they would have received or that they would be processing through. So when we're interacting with each other online, just to kind of be conscious of where you're coming from and where they're coming from, and what is really the emotional dynamic beneath the expression. Okay. Okay. So that's something that I think could be something, that to me that's valuable in that way. So I'm just sharing it, and hopefully that makes sense to some of you. Okay. So the unveiling, right? And what better person or storyline to capture the essence of this conversation today than good old Alice in Wonderland and her journey into the obscure, peculiar bizarreness that is the underworld. And the unveiling is this beautiful creative expression of seeing what's behind the curtain. And that really is the case. Every single one of us right now, and that was what I was suggesting just a few moments ago. Every single one of us right now, as much as we're observing outwardly the nature of reality, the astrology itself at this point in time is actually pointing to how are you unveiling your own curtain? How are you being unmasked at the moment? Do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as clear as other people need to see themselves? So this image over here, and the astrology with Jupiter conjunct Pluto, as I'll go into deeper analysis, how are you being exposed yourself? How is your truth, your ideologies, your perspectives, your internal structure? Not the collectives, not what everybody else is doing, but what is yours doing? And how are you seeing the matrix of your own inner psyche? Give you an example, for instance, which would be, pretty simple. Again, when you talk about, we all are to a certain degree being very much confronted with stuck at home. And of course, like Ramdas talked about, you can be as spiritual as possible, um, but spend a week with your family and let's see how that really actually is the case. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, at the bottom line of it here is that we are still very much connected to the synthesis of higher, or the capacity for awareness, while simultaneously having more of the human, biological, rhythmic nervous system uh, functions as there, the neurology, our brain chemistry. If we don't get enough sleep, for instance, we're not going to be looking at the Om state. We're going to be potentially grumpy, as an example. The body needs its rest. So this delicate balance between the state of being that can hold compassion, while at the same time also managing your own personal unresolved emotional complexes. How do you, when you get angry with somebody, what is it telling you about your own boundaries that may have not been put in place? So it's easy for us to place the responsibility outside of ourselves. And in most circumstances, the reason why we do that is because it's not possible. We can't hold that frequency or that charge, that energy within our own psyche. And we're one of the lessons of Capricorn is how we begin to progressively allow ourselves to hold responsibility for how we influence our day. What choices, what perspectives, what ideologies, what agendas are being put across. So the unveiling. Okay. So what you're looking at right now is my attempt in this video to help us understand what the astrology and what the human experience is dealing with. That's just not a bunch of words that go, okay, Pluto means this, Pluto conjunct Jupiter means that. Okay. So the astronomy, and I really loved this so much. I was exploring this when I was doing the Chiron work. If you look at Pluto over here, you can see that Pluto's relationship in terms of its cycle around the sun is a lot more elongated. You can see that it goes deep into space, and then it comes closer even to Uranus's orbit, right? And it crosses Neptune. Notice how it just comes into the kind of closeness of Uranus's orbit. It crosses Neptune as well, but it also extends deep into deep space. And you can see here the Kuiper belt, where just loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and billions of sort of small fragments of particles exist, rocks and asteroids and stuff. And it's even said through mythology that Chiron, through its orbit, was pulled into this situation over here. Right, Chiron, the asteroid, pulled in from there, coming into that, and it's got a beautiful storyline of how Chiron is a synthesis between the conscious mind, which is your personality and what you see here, and the gateway to the deeper unconscious. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to illustrate here as the astronomy of the unconscious, the astronomy of the relationship between your personal self and the deep unconscious. Okay. And Pluto, as you can see in its nature, when it moves very, 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 very slowly across like this, by the time that the energetic wave arrives here into our solar system, right, the egocentric sense of self that we have, that wave, by the time it hits this orbit of our personal life, it's huge. That's why when you deal with Pluto transits in your life, it's not as simple as, oh, look, I have a Pluto transit. I don't think I've ever met any person in my entire life that would say, oh, yeah, I had a Pluto transit. It was loads of fun. It was a momentary shift in my creation and I just embraced it with so much. No, it's not the truth. Because the intensity and the gravity that Pluto brings to our lives is deep, deep unconscious exposure. It's everything that exists in the deep self that we are not always in every single day able to pay attention to. It's not possible. So this image over here is my attempt to really explain the gravity of Pluto's transit through Capricorn. And then progressively, obviously, as Saturn and Jupiter make their alignments with Pluto in its sense. So we're talking about the social order, Saturn, and the context of philosophical truth being in alignment with a deep, radical, and shift in the way that we as a human race perceive reality. And it's coming from the deepest parts of our memory field. It's coming from the deepest parts, the deepest part. Like an example to illustrate this even more is if you had to go to a lake and you can't see the bottom. And what you would do is you would be able to see the surface, which is more of the Saturn dynamic. And you would take like a stone or like a something like an explosive and drop that explosive or a huge boulder into the water. And you would notice that as soon as that boulder hits the floor, it creates all the sediments to come to the surface. And everything that exists there in that deep realm, that's what Pluto is bringing to the surface. So it comes into contact. So here's another image again to illustrate it even further. Here we have our sort of human experience. This is our solar system. This is just what we see in our day-to-day lives. And within that context, you have the outer planets of the deep unconscious. And even further, you've got the Oort cloud. That's just, it's not even possible to kind of conceptualize. It's so massive, so far out. This is Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Everything's coming from here. And that's what I want to show, is that this is imagery of how the surface, what it appears on the surface, and what's actually existing from the unconscious. There are cycles upon cycles, or layers upon layers. And this is building onto something. So again, these imagery over here is just to illustrate the depth to which things are occurring and how they're arising from this area. All of the material, all of the things that you're seeing, the fear, the anxiety, the trauma, the chaos, the way that we're responding to things, people's reactions, all of that type of stuff is coming from the deep unconscious. And so, to be honest, 75% of the population themselves are not doing depth psychology work anyway on themselves. And the magnitude or the gravity of the energy that is moving through us right now is incredibly intense. So it's quite natural for people's nervous systems to not be able to handle it. And when you're stressed, the last thing that you want to do in a deeply stressed situation is embrace the next person. We tend to, due to the way that our autonomic system works, we tend to feel deeply angry. We can operate, we can action things and behave in certain ways that we would, when we're calmer, reflect back on and say, I was stressed, I didn't really want to say that to you. That's again what I was reinforcing with the message earlier, that this is not a time where life is just simple in that sense. So yeah, you have today's chart, and there you've got Pluto Jupiter conjunction. And the message here with these symbols, as Mars is at 29 degrees, it's about to hit the Saturn mark. And so I've got a bunch of symbols, a bunch of pictures that can help us process that conjunction. Firstly, Jupiter is the entire substructure of the truth at which we use collectively and individually to validate our experience of life. Every single one of us has a unique perspective based on information that we have resonated with. And as we resonate and digest information, we build an umbrella of truth that we use to be able to make sense of our reality. That is Jupiter, Sagittarius. So if I were to ask a biologist, evolutionary biologist, for instance, a question that is related to something like computer science as an example, right? Technology. The likelihood of that person's wisdom or depth of perception to give me the exact same depth of perception that a person that actually works in the field of technology is going to be limited, because the framework on which the life experience and understanding and truth and information is not developed and built upon a different branch of knowledge. So right now, there are two things that are deeply clear. One is that collectively, the entire undercurrent of our individual and collective truth is being revealed and exposed in a very, very Plutonian way. Pluto doesn't look at things and say, let's hide stuff around. It's like, look at everything. And so we are literally being exposed to the fabric of our society. We're being exposed to the undercurrent of how the rules and regulations exist. We're being exposed to the collective truths that we subscribe to every single day. That is what's been revealed to us. And individually, your own interpersonal philosophy and truth. Do you know what that looks like? Go on to Facebook and then go and see the different perspectives that exist relative to how people are trying to answer the question, what is this thing? What are we going through right now? Is it 5G? Is it this? Is it that? Is it a vaccine pushing thing from Bill Gates? Is it that it comes from Wuhan in China, as an example? Like, everyone has their unique perspective. And when you look at the root of that perspective, it's based on the information that have gathered over their lives, and that being the formation of their truth. And that's being exposed. So on the surface, it looks like a plethora of people's information just interacting with each other. But at the bottom, Pluto is saying, look at diversity, look at how we perceive things from different angles and perspectives. And ultimately, we don't know. We don't know. We have no idea. And the reason why we have no idea is because, as much as we would love to be able to have direct experience of information that we're seeing, it's, unless you actually witness the process itself, it's susceptible to distortion. And that's another complex that's arising. We label this fake news as an example. The honesty, the integrity, who's being honest, who's not being honest, the unveiling of the agenda within cosmologies and truths, the unveiling of the entire societal structure is being exposed. Pluto. Okay. Mars and Saturn at the moment are having a conversation with that, and they're going like, well, it's time to be able to remove the veil. Now, when you expose something, like, sure, many of you at some point in your life have experienced a disillusioning moment, something that you believed in so solely, and then all of a sudden it was just like, nope, that wasn't the truth. The first step, go Google it on the internet. The first step in acknowledging something is the realization that it exists. And then it goes through denial, etc. So here's Saturn Mars conjunction straight in your face, and the intensity of it is so much that our minds are trying to make stories of it. But really what's actually happening is it's just a full exposure. And can you be honest with yourself? That's the first step. Can you be honest with yourself? Those energies together, like, so right now we're in lockdown experience, okay? And we've basically got an experience where, you're being told by the internet what to do, right? The ability to independently, critically think at this point in time is being severely, like, influenced by the capacity to just take things as face value. And I encourage you during this period of time right now to question the validation of everything, not to the point where it completely destroys your mental capacity, because that's what will happen, but to just not take anything as fact unless you actually 100% have investigated enough to know, credible sources. Example. Just ask yourself the first question: Where did this information come from? Doesn't have an agenda. How can I trust it? Because right now, this is a period where inner authority is the most powerful thing that you can have. Your inner sense of identity, like your sense of what is correct for me versus what I'm being told. And in different perspectives and in different places, this thing shows up. Like somebody, for instance, that lives in Thailand, that's experiencing something, is choosing to perceive their reality a specific way. And they're actively saying, hey, behave this way. And then there are other people, for instance, that are right banks in New York and are seeing something completely different. And you have conflicting perspectives here. Or in Italy, as an example. This is a time of deep inquiry and investigation. So the first image that shows up for me here is, I'm sure, how many of you relate to this image at the moment? Right? This is interesting. That's Mars conjunct Pluto at the moment. Mars Saturn conjunction, in the sense that we've taken this potion, we've grown all so much, and then like societal structure and the fabric around us is too small. Or alternatively, we've just in this case we've just grown big, right? And then the structures become small, or the structure shrunk and we've become big. Which way is it? Both, in that sense. Either way, this is it. This is the experience, and we all are in some way, shape, or form witnessing this. So the Saturn Mars conjunction will lead to this. This is the Pluto Jupiter. This is the entire conjunction that's taking place. We need to look beneath the surface. We need to know what's existing beneath the surface. What is being revealed to me? And that's why I shared right now that a lot of fear, a lot of uncomfortability, as our sense of self is being completely disorientated. Your sense of ability to make sense of things is disturbed. The continuity of your life has been shaken up. So now we need to investigate. Now we need to go beneath the surface, into the underground. This is the collective rite of passage. And right now, this is a state of being completely in contact with your own consciousness, with your own psyche. Because the outside world is it's just too much. The outside Maya, as it were. So this need, this curiosity, this what is beneath the surface, I need to explore. And so as we venture into this process, which is where I think we're at right now, and there's a reason why that clock is over there. There's a reason why that's over there. The time, Saturn. As we enter this very nebulous, weird, peculiar Saturn in Aquarius time, as the veil is removed, it's a time for us to collectively go through the rite of passage. The hero's journey, the collective hero's journey into the descent we are in. And we are about to enter the belly of the beast. Every single person is here to face their deepest fears. And that deepest fear can range from scarcity to fear of speaking up. It doesn't matter. Every single one of us carries an individual karma. Collectively, we see it on the surface as this, but individually, we're all in this kind of place right now where we're journeying into ourselves. Individual rites of passage, or collective rite of passage. The dark night of the soul. We realize that at this point in time, all of the things that we used to do, people are saying, oh, when it goes back. Let's acknowledge that once this event moves past us and that, the intensity of the planets shift, there is no such thing as going back. We will become fully conscious of the vulnerability of that. We always just trusted that the trains would run. We always just trusted that the airplanes will still be there. We always just trusted that we would go and travel. We always just trusted that the next day we would put something off to do something. How many of you have taken the opportunity to call the person that there is a difficult conversation to be had? And sometimes that's not possible. So I'm not advocating that you go and call somebody that you've had a massive trauma with, as example, like the narcissistic parents that we may have with some people. But this is a great opportunity to ask yourself the question, what can I resolve at this point? Forget about the intentions of bigger archetypal structures. Use this opportunity to free yourself from the inner dialogue that we never actually pay attention to until it was exposed. Everything was just, this is how it was, this life was just this way. Uranus is actively talking to Pluto and Saturn and Mars and going like, hey, by the way, like, do you see how our values are shifting? Lots of things are being exposed. The way that we engage in, value exchange, the way that we talk about the societal structure, the things that are important to us, that we're just always there, that shifted. As I said, with Chiron in Aries, there Chiron sits in Aries and squaring the nodal axis, and it's still trying to integrate the acceleration of the what occurred for us as a society in 2012 to 2018 with Uranus's transit through Aries. Like I said, this is the first time that we've had a type of event like this that happened to us, and that we've had technology and people's influence. And so now we just have a plethora of different perspectives suggesting what it is, including my own, including me, that sits here and says, oh, this is what I think it is, But what's really beneath the surface here is the potential, the possibility for many things, whatever that means for you. Okay. So what I wanted to do was come back to this image that you see here. Okay. All of this here, right? All of that there. I want to now take us on a journey to understand the psyche. I want you to now see the imagery that is occurring here. So right now, at the moment, I want to use this example. So this is our personal ecosystem. This is your personal body, your sensations, your feelings that are present with you. To acknowledge them, to acknowledge your fear, to acknowledge your insecurities, to acknowledge your uncertainties, to talk about them, to allow yourself to be okay with all of the uncomfortableness that comes through right now, without judgment. Okay. Saturn, identity. We all have a sense of security and familiarity and identity. And right now, the way that shows up is the things that we always assumed that's how society operates. You get out of when you finish school, you get an education, you try and get a type of work that provides you with this. Here's the societal expectation: be this way, do this, etc., etc. And that's how our society formed. Right? That's how this worked. Okay. And you can see here that there are different families interacting in schools and so on and so forth. This is how this ecosystem existed. And we have an identity to that. Right? The form of how society, the expectations, the laws, the regulations. So as an example, right now, this type of thing comes along and everybody's asking ourselves the question, okay, so how does our society operate with deal with financial impact economically? That's a complex thing to figure out. That's not simple as, oh, we should just, that's one of the things that's really real here at this point in time. If you're 100% honest with yourself, you'd really realize that the solution to the chaos at the moment is not simplicity in the sense that, oh, if they do that, then that should happen. We all have our personal biases. We all have our personal unmet needs in this scenario, that when the collective or the governments, etc., don't meet that, we get upset. It affects us personally. It's our own personal lives. If somebody's not nice to you on Facebook because they make a comment about something and that affects us, we get angry, or we notice those feelings arise within us. The whole entire societal framework, Saturn, Capricorn, and the cosmology, the truth in which that framework held itself together, Jupiter, is now under for deep review, Pluto. So, what is occurring right now is that from the depths of our own being, this energy is coming up like this from the unconscious, and it's pushing its way like this, pushing its way like this. And as it comes to the surface, it arises here. But if we look deep enough into the experience, a lot of this experience over here is not just in this time. It's not just about now. It's about what happened during Uranus's transit through Aries in 2017, when the internet became, a place where everybody developed their thoughts and opinions, and the rise of influences, as an example. Like, for instance, people that would show up and say, hey, by the way, it's about this. And then people would subscribe to that truth, and then that truth would become their truth, and they'd identify with that truth. Because during a time in which an entire reorganization of a sense of self is occurring, it's natural for us to have to find security in something that we identify with. And that identification becomes the very framework of how we perceive and define and judge our reality to be. Now, as Pluto's coming along, it's telling you that what's on the surface here, right? There's much more to it than meets the eye. It's deeper. And each and every single one of us at this point in time is having experiences where the unconscious is moving through here, and the entire way in which the time and the formation of the society and the identity in which we exist is being reshaped. And the memory. So, what I leave you with today in today's conversation is that, yes, Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is taking place. This will reshape the nature of our reality, the way that we will define ourselves. It's a completely new pattern. This will occur now, and I think in November, and then there's maybe one more conjunction in June, July. I'm not sure entirely about that. I know that there's 3 of them that are occurring. So we have this. And as I said, each and every single one of us, we're witnessing directly the oppression, the structure of our society, the collective truths that we just exist by and agree to unconsciously. All of that's being exposed, and all of it's coming to the surface. And all of the fabric, the structure of everything is sort of being like an earthquake, being like that. And that instability and that uncertainty permeates into our awareness as, a fear of this or a stress. So that's why I talked about in one of the earlier videos, said stillness. Find as much time during your day to at least come back to your center, come back to the sense of self, your grounding in each and every single moment. And so a new cycle is going to occur. Saturn will move through Aquarius. It will begin to create that feeling of Alice being stuck in that box, and we're all kind of stuck in that process. And a revolution's coming. You can't keep people in a box for a long period of time. It's not possible. We're not designed for that. So a revolution is coming completely. And just watch it unfold. Okay. All right, peeps. I really hope that you got something from this conversation today. As I said, I hope that you are all well, relatively in the situation. For any of you that are doing responsibilities or work in scenarios and situations that are very close to emergency and stuff, as always, deep appreciation to you in every sense of the word. And as I said, right at the beginning of this conversation, right in the comments, tell me how you're doing. Share with your experience if you feel that that's what you need to do. And for those of you that don't know, we have a Patreon page where myself and Jen and a lot of other people participate in community conversation, and it's a place to just feel connection there as well. And we create certain videos where we meet and stuff. So if that's something that feels appealing to you, if you feel a sense of community that you would like to participate in, our Patreon page is available, and I'll put links in the description below. Okay. And as I said before, I leave you with this today. I'd like to expose ourselves to Saturn in Aquarius, even during these times of complete darkness and bizarreness, the absurdity and confusion and peculiarness of our existence is the Mad Hatter. Saturn in Aquarius. Here we go. The movie just got weird. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.